Hello, everyone. Nice to see you again. It's been a while since the last video, and actually, it's just been a very busy time at this point. But now I have a bit more time, so let's continue on the C2M topics. I look at what is left to talk through. There are still a couple of quite important topics, and one of them is adjustment. So today I want to talk about adjustment. Okay, so we break that down into five areas. Let's do an overview. We look at the life cycle of adjustment. Then we look at adjustment type and the profile. We'll look at the approval process for adjustment. And at last, we look at the entities involved as usual. All right, so before I start, adjustment is one of those three objects which is going to cause financial impact, right? So if you remember what we have talked through, bill, no, not bill, the bill segment will create a financial transaction. A collection of bill segments create a bill, right? Well, not say create a bill, um, um, build up a bill because bill is simply a collection of bill segments. Obviously, a collection of bill segments plus other things, bill message, etc. Okay, and then we have the payment. Similarly, payment goes down to payment segment, which is on the same level of bill segment. They are all SA based. And the last one is adjustment. Adjustment also have um, financial impact. So over here, when we look at the use case, these are some examples. So it could be deposit, payment arrangements, charity contribution, intangible service. But one thing I haven't read down is, and it's very often being used, is transfer adjustment. Basically, you have, let's say, you have some balance on one of the SA you want to transfer to another SA, you use adjustment. For example, let's say excessive credit. Okay, so normally that you have SA for excessive uh, credits and any credits, which means payment minus um, billable charge or bill segment amount uh, moves onto the excess credit. So someone implementation will do that. Second, adjustment FT has financial impact, as we already talked about that. They are swept onto the next bill generated in its SA's account, very similarly to payment because uh, when well I guess we have to go back to how the bill is generated. Normally you generate a bill, you generate bill segments, and so once you just before you finalize finalize the bill segments, which means frozen all the payment and adjustment, they are considered as part of the bill if there is any pending ones. Adjustment type. Okay, adjustment type we will talk about in one of the chapter later, but I want to emphasize this is quite important topic in adjustment, similar to SA, right? So SA, we use SA everywhere, but everything literally is controlled by SA type. A lot of the behaviors. So adjustment type is something similar. For example, what is the defaulted amount of a adjustment? If the adjustment should be printed, construction of the financial transaction, rate for calculated adjustments. If you want to calculate the adjustments based on a rate, you can do that. Adjustment approval, additional logic when adjustment is frozen or cancelled. So um, these are the areas which you can configure on the adjustment type to make it more suitable to your project. Okay, second part, adjustment lifecycle. Right. If you look at this one, adjustment lifecycle, this is quite similar to the um, build segments, right? It's not way different. Um, so as we said, when the adjustment is frozen, just like the bill segment and payment segment, adjustment has no financial impact until it is frozen. Um, and a second FT is created to reverse adjustment financial impact. Very similar to what we have seen before. Adjustment type and profile. Now we talk about adjustment type, just expand a bit more on the adjustment type. Default amount, right? You can default adjustment amount by a predefined amount, or you can default the total amount due to the current amount due. Uh, you can call an algorithm to calculate default amount. Calculate adjustment, so you can also use a rate to calculate adjustment. So there's a base package algorithm basically pass the base amount to a rate application via a service quantity. Okay, and for financial transaction construction, we know it have financial impact, so impacting the current and payoff balance, GL account, whether it shows on bill, and whether it's frozen at will or not. These concepts, I believe I've already talked through that in billing. So if you have any question, you can go back to those videos. And then characteristic. So for characteristics, there are two types of characteristic for adjustment type. Now, the first one is what is these characteristics are used for reporting and the bill print, for example. And the second one is template characteristic. So you probably haven't, well, I probably haven't talked through template characteristic, but very often you will see some of the type objects have this concept. Basically, they just say this is the list of characteristics can be defined on the adjustment. Okay, so it is give you allowable set um, just to make sure the characteristic is not added without correct mapping. Account payable. Okay, account payable for adjustment it can be interfaced with account payable directly. So, for example, the refund checks can be initialized in the C2M by creating adjustments. Frozen algo. Okay, we so additional algorithm can be defined for when adjustment is frozen or cancelled. For example, let's say a consolidated billing. I think in some uh, project, when you look at consolidated billing, they use a master account and a child account. Now, how do you actually if you bill, normally we bill on the child account. How does master account understand what has been billed? You normally use a transfer adjustment so that the child transfer the billable amount to the parent, so the parent generates the statement with a suite of child accounts, and the child account doesn't generate bills. So this is how, so in some projects, how the consolidated billing has worked. And this is a very good case of using adjustment. Right, so let's look at adjustment profile. Adjustment profile can define which type of adjustment can be levied against each type of SA. Okay, so it is a relationship between adjustment and SA if they uh, can be related. When you add a new adjustment type, you must define which profile it can be used on. Right, so I'm not going to expand a lot on adjustment profile because when you really get into defining profile, you will see some other attributes. But the main concept is basically there to define the relationship. And then we look at a bit more on the financial impact. So credit adjustment relieve the age debt. Okay, so credit adjustment means so normally what we see about those credit adjustments is mainly on the, so let's say if we have a write-off, right? So you will create a credit adjustment on the energy SA, but the same uh, reversed financial transaction will go to the write-off SA, right? So this is how CCMB works in terms of transfer the balance. So you always have a pair. I mean, nothing gets lost. You always have a pair. You have plus and minus, but it is transferring the ownership or the credibility between the service agreement. Sometimes not the same customer. Sometimes it's between the child company and parent company. Um, yeah. So, and there are some other impacts, but I think maybe it will be important to understand the basic concept how the accounting actually works. So maybe one of the session I can talk a bit more about how the financial transaction actually works in a more detailed way, because the way financial transaction works actually determines how you can understand the the balance. The balance. Remember, the balance on account is um, dynamically calculated when you see the balance. There's no calculation behind it. So let's say if you want to run some reports, if you want to generate some accounting um, statements, you have to understand how financial transaction actually works. And a big part of that is to understand how bill segment, payment segment, and adjustment works. Okay, right, adjustment approval. Um, so over here, I just want to talk through just on a very high level. So some of the implementation requires adjustment to be approved by one or more managers before they impact a customer data and general ledger. For example, adjustments used to rebate a credit balance may require managerial approval before the rebate is sent to the customer. Okay. Um, This is quite unique feature. I haven't seen this being used for billing and payment. And here it actually says there is a special rule about this adjustment because whatever the adjustment uh, is used here for approval, normally that comes out to be a customer facing, or it is financially, mm, um, how to say it is something will be used to run some kind of reporting, because if you have a approval process, then you can utilize this approval process not just for let's say in this case like a financial approval, but also things like reporting, in a way of reporting. um, so yeah, approval profile contains the rules that define if and how adjustment is approved. If adjustment type does not reference approval profile, the related adjustments do not require third-party approval before they impact a customer debt. If adjustment type refer approval profile, the approval profile's approval hierarchy defines if the adjustment requires approval and who the authorized approvers are. So approval profile is normally like a matrix. So you can define a matrix, say different levels, which uh, which user group should be assigned to. Maybe it's a manager, first level manager, second level manager, etc. When a transfer adjustment requires approval, only one of the adjustments needs to be approved. Uh, right, so transfer adjustment, we talk about that. You always have a plus and minus. Um, you control whether the debt side or the debit side or the credit side of transfer is used to control the approval process when you set up the approval profile. Okay, so very high level, but I think this is good feature to be considered in the project, especially it involves large amounts of um, large number in the bill. Okay, and this is something definitely worth to explore. Okay, and last, let's have a look at the entity relationship. So, I think you have seen adjustments before, and today we just expand that a bit. So there is a adjustment type, control the behavior of adjustment, and adjustment type profile actually defines the relationship between adjustment type and service agreement. Similarly to bill segment and payment segment, adjustment generates financial transaction, which is normally SA based. So adjustment is based on SA as well. Okay, so that's everything today. Once I have more time, I'll try to put down more, spend a bit more time on the rest of the topics I think which is important in C2M. And thank you very much.